Bro, I'm gonna tell y'all something. Something I've already been telling y'all, man. Money talks in politics, right? It's all about the money, okay? And the corporate money tried to exert control over the Georgia Republicans. But the Georgia Republicans said, we not having it. We not having it. You ain't gonna bully us into your wokeness, okay? Because the Georgia Republicans just pulled a G move, guys. A straight G move. Something gangster, right? Something I would expect somebody like 50 Cent to do. You know what I'm saying? If y'all want to know a vengeful person, 50 Cent is one of the most vengeful people I've ever seen in my life, okay? That's why I call this a G move. Because the woke companies of Georgia, including Delta Airlines, Coca-Cola, other companies, have basically said, you know what? We don't support this new voter ID law in Georgia, okay? And this came as obviously the woke mob and some of the employees were basically threatening to boycott these companies, okay? They was threatening to boycott Delta because they did not think Delta was doing enough. And this is what I try to tell you guys. A lot of this censorship, a lot of the things that we're saying that are happening, right, in regards to discrimination against conservatives, is happening because the customers of these companies want these companies to be woke, right? They want these companies to have these woke values and to flex their political muscle in the name of social justice. That's what they want, okay? And basically, if they don't do that, then they're going to boycott those companies. They're going to say, we're going to stop shopping on them. We're going to cancel them, right? And nobody is afraid of cancellation more than liberals, right? On the right, getting canceled is a form of empowerment. On the left, getting canceled is a form of shame. And these companies do not want to be shamed, okay? What happened is that the CEO of Delta Airlines and the governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp, got in a little back and forth, okay? They got in a little back and forth. As the Delta CEO decided to come out with a lot stronger denouncement of the Georgia legislator for passing a law after being pressured from their woke customers and employees. Take a look at his more harsher response to the new voting laws in Georgia.
Some people are out there with a campaign and have been in the recent week to boycott your airline. Boycott Delta is what they were saying, and that's because they didn't think, or at least came across to them in an initial statement you all made about the Georgia voting law that just passed. It sounded as if you were supporting that law by saying it was better than the original, but it's still, you didn't come out necessarily against it. I have a statement here in my hand now that you all have put out this morning that says you need to make it crystal clear that the final bill is unacceptable to you and that Delta has joined other major corporations to work closely with elected officials from both parties, and you now find the final bill unacceptable. I guess, look, President Biden has called this bill Jim Crow of the 21st century. Critics are suing. Organizations are saying that it suppresses the black vote. So it's unacceptable to you now. What changed?
Well, we've been working with the legislature here in the state capitol for the last couple of weeks, and it's been very frustrating. The early versions of the proposed bill had some really toxic and very suppressive elements to it. The final bill still is not acceptable, as I mentioned in my note this morning, but we are going to continue to work to make change happen, not just here in Georgia, but throughout the U.S., joining arms with many in corporate America, because our black community's voices need to be heard on this topic. Voting is sacrosanct. It's a sacred right. It's fundamental, and we need to make certain that it's not just protected, that it's easily facilitated, and that's our goal here.
Ed, specifically, what do you find about the final bill now that's unacceptable that you didn't in the original statement that you made a week ago?
Well, a week ago, we were working on it. So we never made a statement that we were in support of the bill, that we were working on the bill and making changes as we were going through it. We've had concern throughout the process. And once we've had chance now in the last couple days to fully comprehend, to talk to all people involved, a lot of leaders in the African-American community, as well as our own employees. It's really clear to us that this is going to have a significant impact on their perception of their ability to gain access to the polls, and we don't support that.
All right, guys. So as you can see, basically, he sold out, right? He sold out, right? Because customers starting to boycott. They said, all right, well, we have to denounce this law, full stop, right? And that's what he did, okay? Now, Brian Kemp went on CNBC and responded to the Delta CEO and these other companies, and also tried to clear up some misconceptions that are being pushed about this new bill. Take a listen.
So you just heard from Coca-Cola, and you saw the memo put out by Delta, two of the biggest employers, taxpayers, companies in your state, coming out more forcefully now against this law. What do you intend to do about that?
Well, it'd be nice if they'd point a specific in the bill that they don't like. Same for Mr. Chenault. He's complaining about this as a moral issue. He should look at his own state of New Jersey. They just now signed a bill to have 9 days of early advance voting. We happen to have 17 days in Georgia, and this bill that I just signed adds more opportunities for people to vote early on the weekend. And that's what's so frustrating about this. A lot of the points that you're putting up on the screen about banning water and food, that's not true. Voters can bring water and food in line. People can serve and hand out bottles of water and food as long as they're outside the 150-foot boundary of a polling location that we keep voters from being harassed, intimidated, or electioneered. County elections officials can still give water. You just said that we were taking away drop boxes. There were counties last year that didn't even have a drop box because it's never appeared in the law before. This legislation mandates that every county have at least one drop box. We have 159 counties in Georgia. 134 of those counties under this legislation will be offering more hours of early voting, not less. So I would encourage these CEOs to look at other states that they're doing business in and compare what the real facts are to Georgia. And I think their focus will probably need to be in other places and not here.
Well, I think that's part of the problem, Governor, is a lot of people look at this as a litmus test and a potential springboard for a number of other pieces of legislation like this happening in 42 different states. And a lot of these companies don't want it to move forward. And with all due respect, they are mentioning specifics. Ken Frazier had a laundry list this morning, including, he pointed to Fulton County, which is a county, he said, that is disproportionately affects black voters, as you limiting the number of drop boxes in that place, just as an example. So there are specifics being mentioned.
Well, I'm sure he also didn't point out that a voter can actually just take their absentee ballot and walk in any precinct or the elections office and hand that ballot off as well. I'm sure he probably missed that point. The other thing about the food and water that everybody's been making such a big deal of, a lot of that happened in Fulton County because you had people standing in line for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. My question is, why wouldn't that be unacceptable to Mr. Chenault? It certainly is to me, and this legislation addresses that, mandating the number of machines and equipment that each location has to have to shorten the line. Of course, they're not talking about that because that doesn't play in to the narrative that these corporate companies are being attacked from activist groups that have a financial interest in doing so.
All right, so Brian Kemp was like, listen, we ain't having it. You know what I'm saying? We ain't having it. These people want to complain about things that are not actually issues, things that are not keeping anybody from voting, okay? And there is a lot of truth to what Brian Kemp is saying, okay? Because at the end of the day, you can still bring your own food and water. You just can't have people in line heckling people about who they're going to vote for, trying to influence votes, right? And when explained that way, does that have anything to do with being black? I don't think so, right? I don't think that has anything to do with race, okay? Now, also, he talked about the whole Dropbox thing. He's like, listen, you can just turn in your absentee ballot at an elections office, right? Which is basically the same as a Dropbox, right? I mean, it's basically the same thing, okay? So he's basically like, listen, these people are complaining about spilled milk. And I would agree. Because what is so hard about getting an ID and voting? That's all this comes down to. They expanded votes on the weekend, okay? Right? And they never like to talk about that. They expanded voting, right? Early voting. But people trying to say that somehow this is suppression, right? But the real point of this video is that the Georgia Republicans hit back at Delta Airlines in the most ironic way possible, as the Georgia House has passed a bill stripping Delta of a multi-million-dollar tax break after it slammed the state's new voting restrictions. So Georgia Republicans voted to strip Delta Airlines of a jet fuel tax break worth tens of millions of dollars Wednesday after the company U-turned to unequivocally condemn the state's widely criticized voting restrictions, joining a list of executives who have criticized the new restrictions amid a debate over boycotting Georgia's biggest companies. Republicans and Georgia's House of Representatives voted to revoke Delta's tax break, which is worth tens of millions of dollars a year. The move is in response to Ed Bastian condemning Georgia's controversial voter bill, who described it as unacceptable and not matching Delta's values. A number of prominent Georgia-based companies, including Delta, Coca-Cola, and Home Depot, which exert a powerful force on Georgia politics, condemned the law after pressure grew from activists to boycott them for no longer taking a stronger stances against the law. The bill, introduced towards the very end of the legislative session, was not taken up by the Senate before it adjourned and has not become law. And it's also worth noting that House Speaker David Ralston acknowledged early Thursday that the move was meant as retaliation. Quote, "They like our public policy when we're doing things that benefit them, and they reap the rewards of those benefits, and then they turn around and do this," Ralston told reporters, according to Georgia Public Broadcasting. Quote, "As all of you know, I can't resist a country boy line or two. You don't feed a dog that bites your hand. You've got to keep that in mind." Now, it's important that you guys know that this provision did not pass the Senate, so Delta's going to keep his tax break, but it is kind of a warning shot. All right, guys. So, as you can see, the Georgia legislators like, we ain't playing with y'all. We don't care about y'all being woke, because at the end of the day, money talks. Y'all think that we can't just strip you of your tax breaks, right? If you think you're going to try to play us, nah, bruh. Y'all depend on the government, you know what, like everybody else. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, it's not really a secret to people like me that pay attention. A lot of these companies, you know, for as much as these CEOs out here talking about socialism, a lot of these companies depend on socialism, right? Especially the airline industry. The airline industry is socialized, okay? And they depend on the government a lot, right? They're a socialist industry, okay? And like my boy King Randall says, if they have the ability to feed you, they have the ability to starve you. So these airlines are not really in a position to try to strong arm the government because of how much they depend on the government, especially a Republican government, okay? Especially a Republican government. And it's just funny how this game goes, because up until now, you know, cancel culture hasn't really affected these Republican politicians like that. But see, when cancel culture tried to come for these Georgia Republicans, they stood up. They grew a backbone, okay? At least for now. Bill's not passed yet, hasn't become law, but it's a warning shot. It's a warning shot. And I'm kind of right there with them on this. Because again, you got all these people out here crying and whining about this bill, and they can't point to anything in the bill that's racist. What is keeping a black person from getting an ID? Matter of fact, I'm offended as a black person that so many people believe that black people can't get IDs. You know the rules of the game. I think black people are smart enough to figure out how to vote regardless of anything that this law says. Okay? I really do believe that. But see, what these liberals believe and these progressives believe, they don't believe black people are smart enough to figure out the game, to play the game. Okay? If you really believe this is voter suppression, the bill is there. You know all the rules. Why don't you just follow the rules and vote? Follow the rules and vote. It's really that simple. And like I said, because I believe that the average black person is intelligent enough, right, to use the internet, unlike Joe Biden, and figure out, okay, how am I going to vote? What do I need to do to vote? Okay, I don't have an ID. How do I get an ID? I want to vote. Those who really want to vote, that's what they would do. You know, it's almost like it's a crime to hold a black community to a high standard. You want a seat at the adults table, but you want to be treated like a child. That literally describes the black community. They want a seat at the adults table, but they want to be treated like a child. They want a booster seat. It's like you can't get a booster seat. You will never get respect that way, right? Nobody's ever going to give you respect when they subconsciously feel like that you can't do for yourself. And don't get me wrong, I get it. Some of these people that's do for yourself are dependent on the government, right? But just in another form. But at the same time, you know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, man, all this uproar and this crying and whine about how this is Jim Crow and this is the worst thing ever, man, it's overblown and it's sick. And it's offensive to intelligent black people. It really is. It really is. So, you know, hey, I agree with the Republicans on this. If companies want to get woke, y'all want to play the money game, hey, this is the money game. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a black conservative perspective. Peace.